that has brought us to this point. And I was thinking somebody that can really shed some useful light upon how do we get through all this is my good friend Rachel Quest. Rachel and I go back a few years. We think we first met at church, right?
Yes. Yep.
And we spent a lot of time talking about a lot of the things that Rachel's about. Rachel is do you mind if I embarrass you? Okay.
Sure. Go ahead.
Rachel is the founder of SHED. It's the program on self healing through education. Rachel is a master's level counselor. She's an author. Rachel does everything. She's a national public speaker, group leader, Reiki. What? Get somebody give me the pronunciation.
Reiki.
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 Yes.
Yeah, Reiki you, Reiki me. All right. So anyway, practitioner. In her counseling, she specializes in eating disorders and emotional eating, and she also works with people with body image dissatisfaction, relationship struggles, issues with faith and spirituality, which she is really a heavy hitter on. She's a beast talking about spirituality and faith, anxiety and depression. She works with teens, adults, couples, families, whoever needs it, however they need it. With all that, she leads multiple groups for eating disorders, emotional eating, and trauma. I want to hear more about emotional eating. I think we all want to hear about that. That sounds kind of intriguing. So when you start speaking, be sure to hit that one. Rachel is a resource person for ANAD, which is anorexia nervosa and associated disorders, and she's also a member of NEDA, National Eating Disorders Association. Rachel is a survivor of anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating, which gives her true understanding of the eating disorders dynamics. So, with no further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Rachel. She's going to give us a little spiel, and after that, we're going to have a question and answer period. And if you have any questions while Rachel's still speaking or somebody else is speaking, put the question in the chat area or raise your hand and I will contact you via chat. Do you agree?
Wonderful. Sounds good. Thank you, guys. It is such an honor to be here, just to be able to share time with those of you that are online with us, as well as with these two men who have years and years of wisdom. So I feel like the little one at the table here. So, but yeah, it's just an honor to be here with you guys. And yeah, my hope is really just to get at, just to shed some light. My goal and aspiration in life really is just to help people ease and lighten their burdens. Mostly because I know what it's like to carry heavy burdens and to carry them alone. And that was a lot of my childhood years. And so I know what that feels like. And so it felt like God kind of just gave me the mission when I was 14 in inpatient treatment and basically spoke that to me then. So so first and foremost, I do this out of love and passion for others. So, but what we decided we want to get at a little bit tonight is just because life has been nothing less than crazy, right? We don't need to name the crazy, it's all over the media, but it's just been crazy. And so there's so many different ways that people deal with it, and all the conversations I've had or with clients and such, I'm finding there's a really big spectrum from it's a little bit stressful, but I'm fine, and all the way up to I really don't want to live. I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. So there's everything in between. And so it's so important to really just validate our experiences and where we're at, because that's the beginning of any kind of change, is naming what's going on and acknowledging it, and as much as we can, keeping the shame out of it and not judging ourselves for where we're at. But so that's sort of the short agenda. I'm going to give you just a tad bit of information tonight, not a ton. And then hopefully the Q&A will get more at what you guys are wanting specifically. So have been really big into trauma these days. And there's all kinds of trauma. There's small trauma, there's big trauma. I put it say in quotes. but really trauma is anything that's a break in relationship with yourself. So if there's any thing that's like a repetitive thing, or a really major thing, that can create a break in relationship with yourself. And when there's a break, then there's all kind of patterns that like to sit in that. So that's sort of just a general idea of trauma. So I want to say that first. When I say all the crazy that's been going on, that is, I believe it is a form of trauma, and it can be more traumatizing for some than others, again, based on our history, right? That we all have different experiences, and because of those different experiences, we're all going to experience shelter in place and the news and the upheaval and all the rules. We're all going to experience that really differently. So I would just want to invite people at this time to just kind of ponder and think about for yourself, like, how has this really impacted me? And I think, while we're in the middle of it, we tend to just like hunker down and try to survive. And so maybe this is a time to kind of open up a little bit, open our heart up, and maybe look at something that I call, a big word I use a lot in my practice, is re-stimulation. So how is the experience, whether it be this crazy time or other life things, how is that re-stimulating you? So, i.e., what does that remind you of? What past experiences does that remind you of? What past people does that remind you of? Even if it's not the exact situation, it can be something similar. So that would be a great starting point, I think, is just to be open to that. And some thoughts that I have on that is just, what could re-stimulate us in this? I'll just say for myself, the big one for me was the rules, all of these rules. And I'm only saying this to, number one, be real, and number two, to kind of open up your heart as to what might be being pushed for me. So the example is, we have these different, you can't go out at this time. You have to wear masks. You have to do this. You can't do this. So all of these rules for me has been extremely re-stimulating because of the upbringing I had growing up in a household with a ton of rules. So that's kind of what I mean, is there's a present situation that is pushing something old. So my job is to look at what is that and how can I help myself cope with that in a healthy way, rather than just like, bring out my anger and evil eyes at everyone, because that's really not really productive long term. So again, I just want to open up people's hearts to that, to think about. Some things that I thought about for people is it could remind of times you've gone without food or love, times that you felt abandoned because we're more alone. Again, the rules. If anybody is experiencing OCD, the hand washing, the don't this and this can give you this germ. I can only imagine those experiencing OCD, how it is blowing that up for them. Just feeling trapped, being locked in your house, or just, times of feeling bullied or not cared for. Those are just some ideas that I thought about that may open up your mind as to what it may have done for you. So I think, that might be really smart to maybe jot some ideas down if you have them, and maybe find a trusted person, a sponsor, journaling, someone that you really trust to talk to about those things, to try to help. That's one way to try to help alleviate some of that stress, because anybody that's in recovery knows it just adds and adds and adds until you can feel like you can't breathe. So we need to try to grab it before we feel like we can't breathe. So that's just some of the, one of the first things. And in my practice, that's a lot of what I deal with, is helping people with those traumas and drawing the lines. And it's amazing when people get those ahas and like, oh, that's why it felt so overwhelming, or that's why I was, wanting to self-harm. The ahas really kind of, I guess, devoice the enemy almost, like the critical voice or the heaviness. It just kind of disintegrates it, and then it loses its power. And that's a really beautiful thing to witness and to see, is that piece. There's other ways that I like to deal with it, that with others, and the ways I've personally dealt with it. But we just don't have time tonight. But one thing is IFS, it's interfamily systems therapy. That's a big thing that I like to use a lot. It's really, really powerful. But again, I can answer more questions about that later if you guys want to know more. But I just want to just throw that out there a little bit as a means. But then there's other more practical things, right? So we need to deal with hard times, trauma, pain, and such in our mind. But the piece that I feel like is often missing yet, our society isn't really big on the body piece. So trauma and pain and stress is often stored in our body. So what isn't resolved and what our mind isn't willing to tackle, our body will take on. It's almost like a second brain. And it's just the more I'm learning, the more I'm just blown away at the intelligence of our body and what it does. So for simplicity's sake, just an example is if there is anger that you don't deal with or don't know how to deal with, or just choose not to deal with, anger has the same frequency as your liver. And so anger actually gets stored in the liver. So it's just an example of how our body holds on to things. So we need to pay attention to how's our body feeling, how, head to toe scans. And then if we know we've gone through something stressful that day or that week, it's really important to do body things like it's called like finishing the cycle of the emotion. So help to finish that cycle, we can do things like cry, dance, exercise, breathing, not just breathing, but a 4-7-8, like 4 counts in, hold 7, and then breathe out 8. That's a relaxing a number to kind of calm the whole system down. Actually, hugs help. Long hugs help finish the stress. I know, those are like my favorite.
My
Deep laughter, like hard belly, like, where your stomach hurts laughter. And then, Reiki, again, which I've experienced in, that's another way to kind of help break up some of that toxic emotional stress that's being held in our nervous system. So those are just some brief ways that we can get at it from a physical level as well. If we don't have words, sometimes the words come after you work it out from your body. Sometimes words will come before, but either way, the emotional cycle needs to be completed or it gets stuck inside of our body. So more practical things. I don't know how much Julius wants to know, but I was just going to briefly hit on the practical self-care of just eating well. And I know we hear a lot about that and we tend to go, yeah, uh-huh. But in stressful times, naturally, we want to reach for typically high carb, processed sugar kind of foods because they actually give us a dopamine release. That's what we're searching for, is that dopamine to help calm their nervous system down. So that's why emotional eating can be really popular in these times, is where again, if we're not taking care of it by therapy or talking or these energetic things, we reach for something that we're used to or that's worked in the past. Your amygdala remembers, right? Like, I ate all that ice cream and that felt really good. I'm going to do that again, or do that again. It's even encouraging you to do that again. So it's really important in these stressful times that we kind of watch our sugar and processed food intake, because otherwise we can get caught in this negative cycle where we get a rush and then we get a crash, and then we get a rush and then we get a crash. And so these rushes and crashes of neurotransmitters, as well as insulin spikes, as well as inflammation responses from the junk food that we eat, is actually feeding into and exacerbating the depression and anxiety and different stressors that we're experiencing. It actually can make them worse long term because of the inflammation. So I can, again, yep, go ahead, Julius.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
I saw your hand, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It was all really good stuff. But I, I'm wondering about this validate where you're at, validate that you are experiencing trauma. Can you speak a little bit about, or does anybody else have questions about what are some of the ways that we prevent ourselves from acknowledging that we've been traumatized?
Oh
How do
yeah,
we,
shame.
oh, no, that's okay. Or I mean, how do we not recognize? Because I think a lot of how we damage ourselves is by denying ourselves,
Yeah, yeah.
denying, you know, well, I'm stronger than that. I'm not like that person. So, or whatever. So what are
hmm
some of those things that we can use to get past that? What's
Yeah, that's a great question. And I guess I want to actually start out by kind of pinning media against the wall on this one, because I was personally really bothered by the Share Lemonade website. I know everyone's like, oh, it helped us focus on the positive. And for me personally, I felt like it was gaslighting. Gaslighting is this like, oh yeah, like, oh, you're no, you're fine. Like, oh, you're not, you shouldn't be upset about that. That's, you're making a big deal about this. And so what I felt like it was passing on to people was this, yeah, it's really shitty out there, but hey, let's focus on the light, on the little tiny light, instead of letting people have their feelings. So actually this toxic positivity is one way that we can deny our own reality of, yeah, this is really hard, is we're like, nope, 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 ignore the squirrel, and I'm just going to focus on, oh, the happy, the happy. And I'm not saying being positive is bad, it definitely is not at all. I think it's a great trait many people have. But the overabundance of it in denial of what you're experiencing is actually a way to dismiss.
okay?
So it kind of goes back to that old adage of mom and dad saying, you know, I'll give you something to cry about, right? Sort of like, that's not bad. That's not a big deal. Focus on, you know, it could be worse. So that's one way. There's many ways we do that for sure.
Does anyone have any questions for Rachel? And
I
I
do
will.
have a little bit more to get into, just a tad bit I want to mention before
I'm
Q&A.
sorry. Didn't mean to
Yeah.
shortcut you. Go
No, no,
ahead.
no, no problem. I just wanted to finish one thing, and then I really want to hear other comments, questions for sure. But one thing I wanted to mention was homeopathics, because not many people know about that. So during this time, it's called homeopathic medicine. It's not really like a prescription. It's actually an energy medicine, and I've been really researching that really hard in the last 6 months, and have been using them on myself and clients. And then I am amazed at how it's helping people with sleep, with stress. There's actually different remedies to help people wean off of alcohol, with emotional eating. So there's some different homeopathics out there that can be extremely beneficial in helping during crisis times. So I just wanted to mention that, as well as just like some general herbs during stress. There's ashwagandha, which is a big one to help your adrenals during stress. Vitamin Bs are huge, as well as magnesium. So I just want to kind of hit the all of the mind body spirit with this, is just getting at the psychological, the emotional, and the physical too. So since that's like a big deal to me, and I'm seeing the help of it, I wanted to get that out to people too. But again, feel free to ask me more questions on anything. So yeah, so
Okay.
if anyone has questions, I'm open ears.
Let me see your hand and I'll unmute, or you can unmute yourself at this point.
I just unmuted me. This is Dennis. Um, I'll tell you what. Let me get. I just get to the core shit. I'm sorry. This is me. You know this isolation has sucked shit. It
Mhm.
just is been and it's triggering all my stuff. Um, it's triggered the part of me that was raised in the alcoholic home where it was safer to be in my room by myself playing my guitar than it was anywhere else in the house. So I would escape, but the loneliness of being away, being alienated from the rest of the family was not a fun thing, not a fun way to grow up. And so the isolation and being away from people You know, especially being on the road doing music, and you know, and you know, I love that, you know, that stimulation and all of that. So I understand the trigger. You know, and one tool I've been using, which is has been my convos with God. You know, where I sit and I type on my computer my, you know, my pleas to Creator, and then He magically types back to me answers. You know,
Awesome.
which I absolutely love, and you know, and things that you know, it's just kind of a inner dialogue that's helpful. And so I just wanted to share that, you know, just on a personal note. You know, this stuff hits home with me as a trauma survivor, for sure.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. That's awesome. And thanks for going real. Yeah, it's been really tough for a lot of people, for sure. I mean, I know I've struggled a lot, especially in the beginning. I thought I was going to throw some weights through the window. So it was it was very, very tough. And I knew I had to grab some of my peeps and literally cry and scream it out, you know, like I was talking the body part. For me, I like talking, just talking does nothing for me. I have to get my body to emote. And that's where I find my healing. So I'm really big on the crying and talking and yelling and doing what I got to do to get that energy out. So, mhm.
Great. Any other questions? How about from the crowd, from the other people there? Any questions or any comments on how are you?
Jeffrey's got his hand up.
Where's Jeffrey?
Hey,
Oh,
Jeffrey's.
there you
Hi, how's
are.
it going?
I didn't
Hey
see your
guys,
hand. That,
Good to see you.
good to see you too. Yeah, you actually just mentioned this. I was wondering if you could like unpack some of the ideas that you had with toxic positivity and just the idea of like I'm struggling because I have the same thing where I'm confused and like I'm in a state of confusion and like the isolation is hard. Like I just I'm living on my own and like right when for the first time in my life, like no relationships really outside of the rooms, and that's working. But I'm what I noticed for me is I'm coming back to my childhood and like the things like toxic positivity and like not knowing how to safely experience my emotions because it's one of the things where I was raised that like you can't, it's not acceptable to have anger or to have these other things. So just be like a good person and just always be happy and that kind of thing. So like I guess I'm struggling with that, and I have like that because it's a balance that is an issue because I find myself getting into like the self-pity thing of like, oh, you know, you're by yourself, like, you know, no one's here for you. And so those issues of abandonment in childhood too are very, very strong. And I guess I don't have a problem being honest, but I do notice that I have some like anger and things like that that I don't feel safe that I don't feel like it's okay to express it. And like I'm finding like it's having like it's very much something that's new that I'm finding because it's underneath the surface. I'd spent like my whole life not acknowledging that there's anger there and that there's, you know, this fear and frustration, and now it's kind of like coming to the surface. So like you had mentioned some of the things like, you know, crying and yelling and things like that. Do you have any other suggestions on like safe ways of expressing emotion and things like that?
Sure. First of all, thank you for just being raw and honest. And I really appreciate that. Yeah, and it's really brave. Like, you know, sometimes we see it as not, you know, not brave, but I think the brave ones come forward. So that's honorable. I would say for you, in your position that you know, from what I understood, you're saying it's a more recent time on your own, right? Like, yeah.
Yes.
So, okay. So there's sort of, when there's a lot going on like that, you know, the first thing that came to my mind for you was safe people to talk to and do that with. Like, so do you have people, or can you build even if it's one person, where there's sort of this trust of that, you know, that whatever it is that you express isn't isn't your identity. It's not who you are. It's just this energy restimulation. So that's kind of one thing, is like there's this understanding between you two of, this is just my junk I'm going to scream out. And then I go right back to, I'm fine. I'm not broken. I'm okay. It's just emotion. So yeah, if you're doing a new thing on your own, definitely bring people in, because that old trauma can lie like a mother, and it just lies and speaks, and you know, it's like Drano, right? It's like, there I go, you know. And so there's sort of this balance of expressing, and at the same time, I don't need to stay in it, right? So that's the healthy positivity, is I express and I don't stay. The negative positivity is I don't even get to express, because you know what? I've got all these things else to be grateful for. So therefore I don't have all these feelings. That's not okay. But some other ways, music is a big one, just like, you know, putting like music that you feel like vibrating through you, and you're just yelling it at the top of your lungs, and you're screaming it, or you're in your car, like that's a good one. Just in your car, just like, I don't care if you can hear me or not, I'm singing loud. So that's another one of like, so it's kind of just listening to like your own body of, I just did this, did it help get that yuck out, or did it do nothing for me? And the ones that get the ugh out, then you keep doing those, but definitely bring a person in for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Jeffrey wouldn't say this, but he's a fantastic musician, and he is getting it out.
And Dennis is one of the people that I talk to. I think there's a couple at this group right now that are one of my many people. I guess what I noticed with my disease is that I am doing those things, but like I guess it's just part of recovery, because I don't want to, you know, like I don't always want to have to talk about this, because there is so much shame. Like there's just shame for some reason in being angry sometimes, you know. It's like, oh well, the world needs, what it is the world needs me, this spiritual being, to, you know, go forth and spread the light, you know. And for that to happen, like I can't have any of this be shown. So I can be a good friend to a lot of people that I know in recovery, on the sense of listening to their issues. But when it comes to like me, I find myself, I realize, oh, I'm not sharing the things that are bothering me, because I don't really think that they care, you know. And I feel like I guess I'm coming to realize it's a one-ended type of the caregiver type of codependent thing that I'm trying to make up for. So yeah, progress, I guess.
Yeah, good noticing. And yeah, it can feel like it's a lot. I know the beginning of, you know, I started recovery at 14. And it's, you know, so it's a lot, and I haven't stopped self-growth since. So it's a lot of shit. Yeah.
Rachel, would you agree? Would you agree that it has a lot to do with, or is motivated and directed by, or energized by, giving yourself permission to acknowledge that shame, acknowledge that anger, to say, this is my fucking anger, this is mine.
Yeah, I would say it is, but I think what's before that is dealing with the shame from the parents. That what were the lies that parents taught you that formed the shame, and then it can move into, who gives? It's my anger. Who cares? It's mine, and I get to have that.
And I know that I can express this without it being destructive. That was one of my things. I was taught, don't be angry. I got a whole lot of don't be angry. And I was always Mr. Positive, nice. Until a couple years into recovery, and started recognizing that anger started coming out no matter what I was told or tried to tell it to do or not do. It was coming out, and it was coming out sideways. And that was not acceptable.
Yeah. And I think one thing that helps too is just knowing that anger actually, you know, what I believe is God gave it to us for a reason. It's like a red engine light on your car of like, boundaries are being crossed, your morals are being stampled on, you know, someone's trying to take over your life, someone's in your space. Anger is a very energetic emotion. So it's actually pushing us into do what we typically wouldn't do if we weren't angry. So it actually is a healthy thing. And I like what you said, Julius, as long as we're not harming ourselves or we're not harming others, anger is very benign. It really is. It's actually a helper. So I
You know,
think
when I,
it's helpful.
just to interject, you know me, and some of you know me well enough to know that I tell stories constantly. So it, you know, I'm up to bat. I got a story. So
Okay.
when I went into treatment for the first time, you know, first time, I remember my therapist gave me an assignment to write 500 times, all of my feelings are okay. All right. So it pissed me off. Of course, I didn't say anything, but you know, I went home and I typed a page and I ran the rest of them off and made copies of them and brought them back.
Smart.
And Lynn Brown, she's now crossed over, but what she ended up being my mentor as I transitioned to become a counselor. But at this rate, she was, you know, at this place, she was my counselor. And so I came back with them all typed up and everything else. And she said, "Oh no, this won't do. You have to handwrite 500 times. All of my feelings are okay." I threw all the sheets in the air. I said, "Fuck you. I'm pissed." And she said, and she looked at me and she smiled and she said, "Thank you for sharing your feelings, Dennis." So I love that.
That is awesome. That is, yeah, that's, well, those things are, that they're actually meant to evoke feelings that need to come out, right?
Yep. Yeah. It was a good therapeutic tool. I used it later.
Did you?
Yeah. Pissed a lot of people off. Yes.
That's the whole purpose of tools.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring the feelings out, you know, so we can deal with
And
them on the
share.
outside, not on the inside.
Mhm.
And, you know, and, you know, I came from a family of feeling stuffers as well, you know, and
Yeah.
piety. You know, a lot of shit could go on inside the house, but boy, when you went out on the outside, you know, we walk into the second pew in the Lutheran church in Atchison, Kansas, every Sunday morning, and we were the perfect family.
Mhm.
There was nothing wrong in this family, you know, except for physical abuse, verbal
Right.
abuse,
Mhm.
you know, sexual abuse. And, but on the outside, oh, hey, we were perfect. So I still have to, 76, I still have to fight that duplicity,
Mm.
you know, of being one thing to the outside world and another to the inside world. So, you know, it's been a lifelong battle to become authentic,
Mhm.
to discover who I am and to be who I am so that the outside matches the inside. And maybe not in all circumstances. I've learned that too. You can do too much sharing. You know, there has to be some kind of control.
Yeah,
But
good
Speaking
point.
of sharing, can we hear from the rest of the folks here? You're at the kitchen table. What's your issue today? And what are you doing about it? Ah, Heather, you're not that shy.
You're right, I am not. Yeah, I'm Heather. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. You know, the village loudmouth and pretty transparent person. Thank you for that, Rachel. It just really hits home. For the last probably, I don't know. I got sober in June of 2018. This last time, and somewhere like around the next year, I was around like that 1 year sobriety mark, and God, I was just struggling. I had gone through some psychiatric treatment, like initially, probably 4 months into sobriety, and kind of fell off, and insurance and just like the pace of life and all those things. And I had somebody in the program just tell me, well, like, see, you're fine without meds. You don't need them.
Mm.
And I just went, oh, okay. Cool. Like, I just have to work a better program. That's all there is to it. And somewhere around like May, maybe like May, my father and my grandfather died in the same day. Not my dad I was raised with, my biological father. And I cried, and I went to work the next day anyway. And when I got there, I told them what happened, and they were like, "Why are you here?"
Oh, wow.
And about 3 hours in, I went, I think you're right. I think I'm going to go, And so I went home, and kind of hung out with friends, and I went to work again the next day, and a couple hours in, I was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling it today either, you know? And I just kind of let that be what it was. And it was probably the first time that I was like, I almost didn't have a normal response. I really didn't start with a normal, healthy response, But it's like, I had to kind of give myself permission, and I didn't give myself permission until someone else did,
Mhm.
you know? And around that time, I started going to a chiropractor for a neck injury. And I would say after about 2 weeks of going 3-4 times a week, I was just an absolute fucking disaster.
Mhm.
Like, there's no nice way to put it. And so I called and I made a therapy appointment and, saw a psychiatrist again. And I started the unpacking of the shit from complex post-traumatic stress.
Mhm.
And it's been a cycle of, a spiritual program, consistent chiropractic work, massage therapy, kind of intermittently in there. I've done some intense, um, and just a lot of therapy, a lot of therapy and addressing kind of like that mental state, and it's just so weird how it all works together.
Mhm.
It's mind-boggling to me, but after a period of time, like you kind of start knowing like there's like this weird veil of awareness that kind of
Yeah.
carries itself through, and so now I'm at this point of like, like these things happen, and I can feel that initial response, and it's like that's a trauma response. Like I know what's happening, and so when people are asking me like what's wrong, I'm like nothing, like I'm fine. I mean, I'm not fine, but I'm gonna be fine. But like, I don't know. And there is a certain degree of like peace and like mental and emotional prosperity in that in between time between like when that physical response happens and like when I make it to the other side, and I don't know, it comes with a lot of permission. It comes with a lot of permission from myself, and it
Mhm.
comes with a lot of spiritual consent from other people. Like, is it okay if I just talk frankly right now? Is it
Mhm.
okay if I just tell you what I'm seeing? And a whole lot of just standing on that hill of like, this is my shit. And like, you don't get to take that from me,
Mhm.
And it's a weird place to say, this is my garbage. Don't take my garbage, but somewhere in cleaning up that garbage is like where my growth comes from. So it's kind of a place of like, yeah, like I'll let you in, but at the same time, like so much of this I've gone through but detached from at the same time. So, just being stuck at home for a while, like I was pregnant for a large part of this, I have my daughter at home. I see a chiropractor, she sees a chiropractor. We just went today. Um, but I haven't stopped therapy all the way through, like
Mhm.
I've been one of the lucky ones that's been able to do, Zoom appointments or phone appointments or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like the detachment is not so much of a thing, but it is a point of vigilance, and that was my initial was we're about to be locked down. Like sense of reality, sense of time, like all these things are about to all these like constructs are gonna go out the window.
Mhm.
What do you do now? You know? And
Yeah,
I
and I
don't
think
I don't know except create new ones. Like create new concepts to live by. Everything is so inconsistent, It's like I go to the store, you're supposed to be wearing a mask, you're not wearing your mask. These people enforce it, these people don't enforce it. You're not washing your hands, like, ah, like what else do you do besides try to be the consistent part of your day? Because you can't count on shit else. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
what is it that you count on? Like what else is there?
there
I
were
don't have any
there were
idea.
two things that I really liked that you said. One is it just reminded me of just like it's yours, right? So you just allow that cycle. There was a lot of growth for me when I just allow the feelings to come without judging them. It's like there was, I was used to having the judgment about them, but just allowing them to be was the difference. Like, yep, right now I'm really sad and I'm sobbing. I've cried in the weight room, like literally working out. I stopped and I just let the tears come and then I finish because something came up. It's just letting them come because I know of there's enough going on where I need to do that. And then actually get done. And then sometimes I laugh when I'm done because it felt good. I knew it needed to exit. So it's just allowing that, you know, there's probably a lot of grieving that we all need to do because of what's going on. And grieving is messy. Like, it's not like step one and then step two and oh, now I'm at acceptance. It's like I'm mad and then I'm sad and then I'm pissed. And, you know, it's just like it's this crazy roller coaster. So just allowing that, I think, was awesome. And then one other thing I heard you say was like a breaking point, which I thought is actually, it's really healthy when we reach that, like, I can't hold it together. Even Julius mentioned that too. And that comes with a lot of helping and loving yourself through it too, is knowing that the mask and the images and the trying to keep it together just isn't working. And we know the only way out is the old adage of through, right?
Yeah.
Another thing that's useful, I don't know, for me, and I think for most of us that deal with addictive issues, and that is, can I get through this right now? If I'm looking at, oh shit, can I do this for another 6 months? Can I do this for a year? Can I do this for 5 years? How long is this goddamn shelter and fucking place gonna last? And I'm sick of these goddamn masks. I'm gonna chew through the next one I put on. Who knows? Whatever. But going through a lot of anger and frustration and all this. If we had looked, I know if I look at it like, okay, I only have to do this for 6 months, I'm not gonna make it through the end of the day. It's unlikely I'll make it through the end of the day. If I'm thinking 6 months, if I'm thinking a year, no. For me, it works very clear. All I have to do is get through the next hour. All I have to do is get through the next couple hours or a few hours till when I go to bed tonight. Then tomorrow, I'm going to deal with tomorrow. But today, I just have to deal with getting through it today. And this is how I got through my earlier years of sobriety. It was always, can I just get through? I go to work. Can I get through work? When I leave work, can I get all the way home without drinking? And I get home, well, all I have to do is just do my stuff here, and all I have to do is make it to bedtime, and I'm good. And that's lasted for 36 years.
Awesome.
So I apply that to this whole shelter in place, the mask, the rules, the not seeing my grandkids. And, you know, can I do it for right now? And I don't know how helpful that is for everybody. It works for me.
It's very helpful, and there's always the breakthroughs for me as an artist and a creator of music. That what I find is that when I do my grieving, when I allow myself to go through the process, and I come out the other end, it's like there's this beauty of creativity that opens up. And I love that. And this has taken me to dark places, but it has taken me to sublime places as well. It's taken me. When I really think about it, it's like when I was on the road all the time. You know, I was boogieing around for 30 to 35 hours a week, and and then I'd come home and I'd get ready for the next gig, and then I'd be gone again. And now, and I'd always say, gosh, I wish I had more studio time. I wish I could spend time in my studio. I wish I could create more music. I wish I could blah, 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 you know, and guess what? Now I can, and here it is. So but I have to get through the grief to get to the creativity. And I'm learning to embrace the process. You know, that there, I believe there is purpose on the other side of grief. And I believe that my faith, you know, in God and in people and in myself, says that I can get through this and I can come out the other side. And what's going to happen is art. What's going to happen is new relationships that are being formed. Julius and I probably would never have been friends had it not been for COVID, for crying out loud. we were both stuck in a place, and it's like we met each other once every, like we hit it off well, but the relationship evolved by telephone and by FaceTime and by doing these things. And there are other people that I just met Rachel tonight. There's other people, and then there's people. I thank her, my friend Mildred Schumann from Lac de Flambeau is here tonight, and Jeffrey, and just a lot of people that have come into my life because of this as well. So, but I've had to go through the grief to get it.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Seth.
Yes, Seth.
Oh, go ahead.
Seth. All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, totally uncomfortable fucking conversation for me. I am, like, just like that gentleman said in the beginning, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. The first one that made the comment, it's like for the little over 4 years now that I have in sobriety, my mom died at 4 months sober of an overdose. And, I've never felt that grief. Dennis was just talking about coming through the grief and seeing this art, and seeing all the creativity and all the good things that come from this grief. And then there's someone like me who's like, fuck that. I'm not even stepping into that initial fear, just moving into that. It's like I've put on this facade of just happy-go-lucky, I don't think anybody in this room has seen me upset or emotional, and I'm, out of all the people I know, and half the time I can say that about my wife. It's put a divide in a lot on our relationship because I'm unable to express feeling other than happiness and joy. All through COVID, I'm fucking dancing around the house and just being happy-go-lucky. I don't know how long we were quarantined for, and I don't know, just stepping through that fear to allow myself to grieve. I've been in therapy for 8 months now. And I think it was about a month ago now, I finally shared some feelings with my therapist. And the whole time, I'm resentful with this lady. I'm like, why the fuck isn't she helping me? But at the same time, it's not her fucking job to feel my feelings. She's there to listen to whatever I bring. And most of the times, oh, life's so grand. My life is just so happy, so go lucky. And then all this bad shit started happening. And now all this other shit is coming up. And it's so much to handle. So just allowing myself to open that door has, I tried to let a little bit of sunshine in. It's when the police come to your door and you open the door and they just kick the motherfucker down and they're like, we're coming in. That's where I'm at. And the floodgates are open and it sucks. But the fear of just opening that door just a little bit so they can kick it in is just really killing me. And as soon as I open it, all this water comes gushing in, all these emotions come gushing in. I'm like, oh shit, let's close it real quick. Hurry up. Before I have to feel some more of that. So I don't know. I don't know how to handle it. I just changed sponsorship to somebody that I think is a little more emotionally available. I come from a sponsor, or for the last 3 years, I've had a sponsorship line that's just oh yeah, give it to God, everything's going to be all right. And it's kind of like that gaslighting that you were talking about. I really appreciate your conversation tonight, but just being in here and, seeing the likes of Julius, Black Dad, you've got a grandbaby right here that you still haven't met. And, hearing Dennis open up and talk about stuff like that is and sorry, I need Jeffrey. I need men like that in my life. It's cool to be around my wife who's always expressing emotions. And I'm just I view it all as any anger or sadness, I try to fix it. There's that level of codependency where I'm oh, how do I fix this shit? Let's just be happy all the damn time. So it's really hard for me to break through that. And just to hear some other men do it, because I mean, of course, women do it. I'm used to women doing it all my life, but like being able to see other men do it is a big thing for me tonight. So that really helpful. And I'd love to be in contact with Dennis and Jeffrey and Julius more. So I
Hey,
have
can I step in?
no.
All right. Yeah. Hey. So yeah, I wanted to step in because I actually lost my mom too to alcoholism, and I had stuffed it. I went back out and was out there bad to the point of like not returning. And so when I came in and first started, all those emotions were so hard. And all I guess that I was going to say is that you are starting the process, or you're in the process, because for me, like, my sponsor told me early on, just share, share. And like, I'm finding like the amount of grief, just, it comes and it goes. But like, when I share on it, like, I get through it. And it's almost like the way I view it is like my body is detoxifying, and yeah, it is, there's an excess, of me stuffing her passing for 5 or 6 years. And like, it's one of those things that like, I've noticed that like my higher power comes in at times that I can't, I can't plan it. It's his kind of thing. And the grief kind of has subsided, because I've let it happen, and I have people that I can talk to and like feel the emotions. It's almost like, someone had mentioned earlier, like, if I allow this process to work, like I'm naturally, but by sharing and being honest and like listening, like I'm naturally going to find like my balance, and that, seems to happen more naturally, I guess, with women, because, they like to talk more, I guess, something like, I don't know. I have to learn how to talk about my emotions and all this stuff, because, it does the trick for me. So like, I know where you're coming from. Thanks for sharing that too.
That just warms my heart to hear you guys' connection. I love it. I mean, there's just nothing like someone that gets you, right? That has experienced similar things. It's really comforting. I don't know if this helps or if will answer part. And if not, I apologize if I'm missing it. But when you're speaking about the fear of getting into feelings and like, I don't know how to do it, and I just let a little bit out. What came to my mind was, years ago, I was a pretty hardcore exercise addict, as well. I went through the ringer with all of that, but I had a severe injury, so where I couldn't lift weights, and they wanted me to start talking about it. And I seriously, I had the vision of ripping out their esophagus, of like them trying to ask me to talk about it. I was so angry, just the fact that I had to talk about it. I couldn't even talk. I mean, I was screaming at him, like, I'm not going to talk about this. And it was one of the biggest breakthroughs for me in that time, anyway, for the other person to say, tell me how much you don't want to talk about it. And I laid in for 15 minutes, and I'm telling you, I yelled and screamed to the point where I was losing my voice. And then literally after 15 minutes, I was calm, and I sat there and I'm like, okay, well, I'm ready to talk now. But I first had to talk about how I don't want to talk about it, right? So, I mean, maybe that's an end to some of these, like, I don't want to talk about that feeling. So I'm going to talk about how much I don't want to talk about it first, or what the terror of what I imagine is going to happen if I talk about it.
Yeah, I think like a lot of it's just like fear of reaction. Yeah. Of like, like I'll get pissed off at Heather about something. She'll never know. She will never know. I will take that shit to the grave with me. Just because
that last little nerve, not even knowing it.
Yeah, because I don't want to express that to her, because if I do, like, I'm afraid of her reaction. Like, is this going to lead to confrontation, or what I think is confrontation? Whatever, like we bicker back and forth, not really raise our voices most of the time. It's level, it's sane, always. But like, I fear this reaction. I fear having these uncomfortable conversations. And like, I just want to be comfortable and fucking happy all the time. So like, if I can just swallow that down for a little while, I'll be okay. but then like we'll get in a fight and I'll totally negate anything she's saying, you know, because she'll bring her feelings to me. And I'm just like, well, fucking you do this, you know, and like I do it at the fucking worst time, you know, like, hey, we're already here. I might as well just bring up the things that are bugging me,
Right.
which is stupid because now I'm not listening to her and I'm just getting out what I want. Yeah, it's caused a huge divide in our relationship, you know, and me not being able to express those feelings. And we've been working on it. And like, you know, I mean, we have a great connection as of late, but just getting there and through that process. So yeah, I guess to talk more about, I don't want to fucking talk about it. That's a really good piece of advice.
Yeah, that's great.
I wanted to say too, I'm grateful that my wife and I have been married for 31 years, and when we got together, both of us were processing our trauma. You know, 31 years ago, she was discovering hers, and she was going through her trauma work. I was going through mine, and we were really kind of like two people in a boat, kind of rowing away from our past and rowing toward our future, and helping each other along the way. And Heather and Seth, I just want to give you some hope there. It's good. And then the other thing I wanted to say is yes, absolutely, Seth. Dennis Hawk, I'm on Facebook, so you can contact me. Yeah, we're Facebook friends. So, you know, feel free to open that up. I've felt from the beginning that when Julius and I first started talking, that you know, the vision that came to me was, yeah, we're going through some tough stuff right now, you know, as a nation, as people, but we can get through this together. And you know, like you can't bunch us all up together. It's got to be small groups. It's got to be small boats with people in them that are going to help. Their life rafts, and we can get through this. But we're going to need. And I think I realized it for myself that I needed more people around me, even if it was virtual, because it was still people. We can still share our hearts in this media, and so yeah. I'm open to more dialogue, more talk, more conversation, you know, because I need it too, for sure.
Yeah, I think big
One of
thing.
the things I wanted to add in there is that about what Rachel had said earlier about anger is just a process. I mean, it's one of the pieces of the process of how our feelings come up. They need to go do what they need to do, and then they'll go for the next feeling to come in, and it's an ongoing thing. And one of the things I like, I was thinking of putting in here when you were talking, Seth, is that one of the hooks for me in dealing with my anger in a different way is I have control issues. And I recognized early in my recovery that when they were pointing out these anger things about myself, is that the anger is coming out no matter what the hell I do. It's coming out sideways. I'm making little snide comments at people. I'm doing other little shitty things. The anger is coming out at people that don't deserve it. You know, it's coming out no matter what the hell I do. So they talked to me about how, okay, these are some constructive ways of the anger is going to be there. You have some old stuff that still has a lot to come out, but here are some ways to assist that process in a non-destructive way. So it doesn't hurt the people that we love. It doesn't disconnect me from people that I love and that love me. And it doesn't come out on total strangers, on that waitress or on that, you know, the cashier or whatever at the store. If I learn how it works for me to get that anger processed out. And it's not always the same. There's certain things I do, certain things like I really like. One of my things now, I know this is oversharing, but I'm gonna share it anyway, is that when I'm working out I work out in our basement, but working out doesn't do it by itself. I usually have the dog with me and we're dancing. We're cutting it up. We're breaking it out. We're doing some real nasty moves and everything else. It's me and the dog. Loud music.
That's fucked up.
Well, don't. I hope you didn't get a visual with that. Okay.
Yeah, I did.
But anyway, no, it's in the basement. Nobody can see us. I can just look as goofy as I want because the dog won't tell on me. He hasn't yet. So, but that's part of that process, and that gets me through my little frustration of my world being so limited and all these other things. It's I think what's really important. This is what does it for me. What's important is a be a risk taker and try behaviors that resonate with you and keep doing those. And I think each one of us has have our own ways of what's going to work best for what situations that we're in. But we don't know that until we try things. So we got to open up our minds to, okay, I got to try something different. And that's a lot of what Dennis and I are doing here. Our last presentation, or our first presentation, was a disaster on all kinds of levels. But that was okay because we're trying it, right? We're trying something new. And we actually started this one with that failure behind us to make this maybe work a little better. And maybe the next time it'll be even better, which then leads me to something else, and that is, please provide us with feedback.
Yeah.
All three of us can use the feedback, or any one of us, whatever. But any feedback you have about your experience during this presentation is valuable.
Positive or negative. Like I mean, I always tell people I work with, please tell me if there's something that a process or words that I said that didn't work. Like that's just as helpful for me. So for me anyway, I'll say positive and constructive criticism are great. And I do want to add too, if you want more in depth of how to work through feelings and such, may I interject this now, Julius, or no?
Sure.
November 7th, I'm joining with another organization. It's November 7th at 10 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. It's also a Zoom. We just ask that you RVSP, and it's donation only. So if you can't afford it, you can't afford it, no big deal. But if you can, donation only, whatever you choose. But again, it's on Zoom. You can find the links and such on my Facebook, Rachel, and then last name is QUAS as in Sam, T as in Tom. So Rachel Quast, all the registration, all that. It's simple, it's just your name and email to register. If you don't make it, you don't make it. But anyway, it'll go more in depth into like some different ways to kind of get at some of what I was talking about, of how to, I'll like walk you through a meditation on how to, like, you'll pick one specific thing and I'll walk you through a meditation on that. And then before that, do some training. So if you're interested, feel free to jump on that. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did any of our non-speakers want to chime in with either a question or a comment? Let us know where you're at before we close. Mildred?
Sure. What's up, everybody? How is everybody doing tonight? This is Daniel.
Hi, Dan.
Yes. How is everybody?
Dan?
Well, I just want to first say that I'm grateful that I was invited to this. It's been a wonderful time. I think all three of you guys gave some great wisdom. I guess I'd wanted to share something real quick with when Rachel mentioned re-stimulation, and I've been sober since around June of 2018 myself, and when I was in my mess, I had a cat that passed away on me, and I had just found her passed away behind the couch, and it was at the time not traumatizing to me because I was in my mess, and I just picked her up by the scruff, put her in a garbage bag, and put her in the garbage. And recently, maybe the last 6 months or a year, I had an experience that basically re-stimulated that, and that grief was just stuffed, and it just came pouring out, and so, it was really beneficial for just Rachel pointing out how, re-stimulation and situations that we come into, or things that are said, will stimulate a buried, past trauma. And, it's so helpful to be able to identify, why am I feeling so, where are these feelings coming from? Like, this doesn't really fit this current situation, but it's so close, to what happened in the past, that it actually unburies that and allows you to properly grieve or be angry or whatever that emotion needs to be, so that you can process it. And so I just thought that was great that, you mentioned that, Rachel. And
Yeah, thanks.
yeah.
And it's a really good point of like, hey, this emotion doesn't match the situation. That was really well said, because that's often what happens. It's like, why am I, quote, overreacting, when it's just because of what you said. It's pulling something from the past. So
Right.
good
Yeah.
point.
Anyone else want to speak up? Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, no
Thanks,
problem.
Peter.
Thank
Thanks
you,
again
Dan.
for the invite. It's been a great time so far.
Yeah, glad you could make it.
Just speaking of donations, there in the comments there is a PayPal me at Dennis Hawk Artist. We're totally donations based in what we do, and so if you want to contribute, that's great. If you don't, we're glad to have you here, because somehow we just move in trust. Rachel, what you presented was so spot on. I really appreciate you. I'm glad I've got a new friend now, and
I'm so
happy.
excited.
Me too. I think there's so much to, so much to explore. I started doing trauma and addictions work 30 some years ago. Besser Vanderkolk, who was one of my mentors, and he hadn't written anything yet. He was just doing his studies at Harvard at the time. Wow. And Patrick J. Carnes was one of my mentors as well. And so I did that work for almost 20 years. And it's good to be out. Now I just play guitar and I sing and I do some fun things. But I really appreciate the way the field has grown. The vocabulary that you're using is more targeted. It's more specific. It's more understandable. I really appreciate that there are still people willing to get up, get in the trenches, and help people through the trauma, because there is hope at the other end for sure. Although I always believe that it's a cycle. We go through it and we go through it and we go through it, because that's how we grow as humans. Yeah. And I just want to thank everybody for showing up, and we really dug deep tonight. I was like, wow, this was not surface. You guys shared your hearts, and I'm grateful for it. So thank you.